Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Welcome back. It's my pleasure to reconvene, and I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker. Barbara Carr serves as the Executive Director of the SPCA serving Erie County. And she is, during her tenure at the SPCA, has been responsible for bringing surgery in-house, creating the Whisker Wagon, the SPCA Mobile Adoption Unit, developing the SPCA On-Site Adoption Program, et cetera, et cetera. There are innumerable initiatives that we have seen at the SPCA, and Erie County is so lucky to have such an innovative and inspired leader. She's also served as the advisor to the Humane Society of the United States Companion Animal Division, and 3-year term as the National Federation of Humane Society's first ever board of directors as president. Barbara Carr.
So this is really easy because half of you work with me that are in this room. So I don't have a PowerPoint for you, just a really bunch of ugly slides from hoarding cases. I thought that was appropriate right after lunch. I'm going to start by reading this short article out of the Buffalo News. A warrant has been issued for the arrest of a Buffalo woman on cruelty to animal charges involving 12 cats and 8 dogs found in an apartment she had occupied, the SPCA in Tonawanda reported today. The SPCA said the woman, Susan Widler, apparently had put stray animals in the apartment which had no heat or electricity. The woman has disappeared. 1 cat was dead, reported the SPCA. 1 dog was living in a closet, and officials of the SPCA had to peel away clothes to get to the animal. The animals are emaciated and have respiratory conditions. Some of the animals are very ill and not expected to survive. This was an article that I found when I was going through our archives, written in 1989. We are still arresting Susan Widler today, okay? I can't tell you how many times, well, we don't really arrest her anymore. We just get the animals that she has hoarded. She is a singularly pitiful human being who has made the lives of many animals as pitiful through her hoarding. And generally, she's one who picks up stray animals on the street, and then she finds some place to hide them. I think the last time we took animals from her was from an abandoned home in Buffalo. And when she would get enough animals in one room, she would just board that up. And there would be little space at the top where she could throw food over. And I also think one thing I remember the last time, and I don't know if this was every time that we had to take animals from her, but she would have stuffed animals sprinkled around the room. So you would see all these piles of feces with little tiny stuffed animals everywhere, and dead animals as well. But the point being that Susan is still living in Buffalo, and I guarantee that she is still hoarding animals. And that at times she's living with the animals that she's hoarding, and some of the animals are dead and decomposing when she is living right in there. We've arrested her on numerous occasions, but her behavior today is similar to that of 1989, and she continues to round up strays and hide them in abandoned buildings or apartments. Susan, those of you who are from other agencies in Buffalo, you will note that when we have animal expo in the fall, we go around to all the booths and point out that Susan is there and that no one should adopt to her. We have maybe 30 agencies at this expo that we have every fall, and not everybody knows Susan, but she will always be around where there are animals looking for a home. Hoarding was defined in the public health literature in 1999, and I think we saw this on an earlier slide today, but having more than the typical number of companion animals, failing to provide even minimal standards of nutrition, sanitation, shelter, or veterinary care, with this neglect often resulting in the illness and death from starvation or spread of infectious disease or untreated injury or medical condition. Here's the biggie for me: denial of the inability to provide this minimum care. I've never met a hoarder yet that thought there was anything wrong with the care that they were giving the animal. So they have an inability to provide the minimum care, and the impact of that failure on the animals, the household, and the human occupants. They also don't think any human is suffering or the building is suffering. Persistence despite this failure in accumulating and controlling numerous animals. So all kinds of animals are hoarded. Wayne was just telling me about a case they just had of 2,000 rats the HSUS was on. We haven't had any rat hoarding cases, but we've seen just about every other animal: cats, dogs, farm animals, exotics, rabbits. But most cases really do involve the more common domestic animals, cats and dogs. And cats are very, very common, by far the most common animal to be hoarded. There's so many cats available to hoarders. Like Susan, you can just go out on the street and find stray cats. You can certainly find people wanting to give away their cats. Shelter organizations, are certainly have adopted animals to hoarders without knowing. And not only are they easy to get, but they're much more easily concealed. Susan could have 12, 15, 20, 100 cats. The minute she had 3 dogs, there'd be a barking complaint, okay? So really what calls us out on cat complaints are odors. Okay? When summer comes along and the neighbor has their windows open and all of a sudden they can smell the house next door. And that's not that difficult to do in Buffalo because our houses are pretty close together. But some hoarders take in multiple species, but generally they concentrate on just one species. And no one actually knows or understands why a hoarder picks one species over another, or if there's actually even any differences between cat hoarders and dog hoarders. Hoarding knows no age or gender. They're males and females, mostly older females, but there are young men and young women who are involved in hoarding, and so there isn't a set, this is going to be a hoarder, someone my age, okay? It knows no economic levels. I think you're all aware of some hoarding cases that we've had at the SPCA that involve very well-off people. And even though all these things, I will say that in my experience, most of the cat hoarders that we see are women. In fact, I think I can only remember one male cat hoarder in the 20 years I've been at the SPCA. They're very secretive and often lead almost double lives. You'll find oftentimes with hoarders that they have a job in public health or in service or something, and nobody knows that they're hoarding animals. I can think of dozens of cases where people were very surprised to find out that there were the number of animals in a household with a coworker that they didn't, I'm surprised they couldn't smell them. But I certainly can when they come in the shelter. In a typical year, our SPCA, believe it or not, will probably take in 500 to 1,000 animals just from hoarding cases. It's a huge, huge burden on any SPCA to take in these animals. The financial costs run at least $500,000 a year for us to care for victims of hoarding. And as I said before, most often they are cats. Most of the cats come into us, they're quite ill, they're suffering. Some are dead. Actually, many are dead on arrival, okay? Or there are dead animals in the hoarding I think one of these slides, I don't know how well these came out, but there's one slide in here of a refrigerator that's filled with dead cats. This woman even wanted to hoard her dead cats, okay? It wasn't enough to hoard the live cats, but she had a refrigerator full of dead cats. A lot of the kitties that we get in from hoarding cases will not be rehabilitatable, but our advocates over here in their maroon shirts work hard on them, and they've actually determined different ways to work with the cats from hoarding cases, and I think that that would be interesting for maybe you to study. That. Okay, 4 minutes. To study why cats who are hoarded would react differently to enrichment and getting better, but you might check with my team over here. So at any given time, I'd say we have 6 to 10 cat hoarders operating in Erie County that I know about, okay? And we've emptied out each on numerous occasions. Susan Woodler is certainly one of them. There's one woman that ran a rescue. You know, she collects donations. She has a 501c3, and she's hoarding animals. We've taken all her cats, and her whereabouts is unknown now, but I can guarantee you that it's with a lot of cats. We have hoarders who specialize. I remember one who would only take in orange cats, and another one that would only take in white cats. The one who took white cats in, she apparently believed in declawed cats because she declawed all the cats with fingernail clippers. Yeah, it was lovely. Kathy, you remember that case, don't you? Last year we had a woman with over 200 cats, mostly Maine Coon cats. She had been a well-known breeder at one time. There's another woman, this woman calls me every week and leaves long messages on my phones. Last time we took her cats, she was keeping them in U-Hauls. Before that, she would rent U-Hauls and keep the cats in there. Before that, she rented units, storage units to keep her cats in. So they just go on and on and on, and they're very, very clever, and they can really keep up with all this. In the 20 years, I've only known one cat hoarder that we arrested that has not reoffended. And that's the one offender that we were able to take through the court system and get appropriate counseling for him, actually at Tufts University, who studies this. And that fellow he's the only guy, too, has never reoffended. So I believe we've worked with him in other age. You've worked with him to keep him on the straight and narrow. The prosecution just isn't the answer for these folks. But to this date, we know so little about hoarding. Nobody really knows what animal hoarding is. You know, some people will say it's this, other people will say it's that. But because they really don't know what the mental defect is, nobody's treating it appropriately or well. And certainly we want, at the Erie County SPCA, to be on top of this and stop seeing animals just over and over and over have to suffer. I can't imagine the thousands of animals that Susan Woodler has caused to suffer. But Susan Woodler is suffering as well. And I think until we can stop the suffering of the Susan Woodlers, we're going to see cats and dogs and horses and rats and all the other species of animals be subject to this kind of abuse. So while we go forward, let's make sure that we're learning as much about the hoarder as the hoarded.